Hello, dear friends. This is Grandma Jeannie. Welcome back to my workshop. Tonight, I am going to, finish up the rest of this house. If you've been watching along, you know I've already repaired the roof and touched it up and cleaned it up. The problem with this, there's just a little bit of paint touch-up that needs to be done inside. There's one rusty spot that I'll show you later. And it needs to have a little bit of cleaning. And the other concern is these windows are missing. The windows should look like this, of course, except to be smaller to fit the hole. And there's two plastic pieces, one on the inside, one on the outside, and then they snap together as far as I can tell. But they are all missing on this house except this one. So I'm going to try to make something that would look very similar to that. So the first thing that I've done is to try to make a template for these windows. And these windows come in this door size, like here. And then these windows come in 3 different sizes. This is the largest, and then there's a medium, and then the ones on the other side of the house are a little bit smaller. I've already made a temporary template for these windows, and I did it by the tried and true method of putting some cardboard in here and then taking a pen and drawing around on the inside. So my template should be just exactly the right size and shape. I'm going to try them out. Here's the one for the biggest window. Should go right in there. I feel like that is a pretty good fit. Then this one goes over here. That feels like a good fit also. And then I also have, there's a door on the other side like this that's missing the window. So I've got one for that, and then I've got one for the smaller. Now I'm going to turn these into more permanent templates. I took my temporary templates and I traced them onto a bigger piece of cardboard, put all the measurements, drew all the lines, and here's the other one on the back. And then I took some clear plastic that comes in sheets like this, and I have cut it down into the right sizes, allowing an extra 1/4 inch all the way around. Probably can't see those. So my idea now is to tape white lines on there, and then we'll use magnets or something to affix those up to the side of the house. And then this house will have regular windows in it. First, I tape the clear plastic to the template. Then I add 1/4 inch pinstriping tape to the middle and edges. Repeat the process for the bigger windows. Here they are. I got them done, and I think they are going to work very, very well. I'm going to attach little magnets to them so that they'll stay in place by themselves. But look at that. Looks so good. I'll attach a little magnet to each corner of the windows, and then that will attach right to the metal, and they'll stay in place or be easily removed if somebody wants to remove them. Here are the magnets that I use. These are very small magnets, and I get them on Amazon. You get a box of, you get 1,000, and actually this is the second package of these I've had. When you get them, they come in a little plastic box like this, and then they're all stuck together in a line. To pry them apart, I like to get my fingernail in there and separate and get the top one off. These are so little, I don't know if I can even show you how little they are. It's right there. Right there. It's flattened, maybe about the size around of a BB, but flat. I have actually heard these are easy to lose in your workplace. They're easy to lose when you're working on a metal dollhouse because they want to stick to the metal. My table is metal, so sometimes they get stuck to my metal table and I have to find them. They fall on the floor, and then I run a piece of metal over the floor to get them picked up. I have a friend one time that lost one, and she looked and couldn't find it. When she washed her hands later, it had got stuck under her fingernail in a little glob of glue. So she eventually did find it. I've already attached these to all the windows, but on this window, 2 of them came off. So I'm going to show you how to attach them. I put a little glob of this glue, and then I drop that little magnet on there, and then I let it dry. So what happens is when I put this on the dollhouse, these attach to the dollhouse, but if I take the window off, sometimes the little magnet stays stuck to the dollhouse. It comes loose from the glue. So I'm going to show you how I prevent that. I take a piece of clear packing tape or Scotch tape, but you want the clear kind, and then I'll cut off a piece of that, but then I'll cut it into little strips. And I've done that. I've got a few little strips here. So I'm not sure if you can see that little bitty strip. Yeah. And then I'll just wrap that over that magnet, or wrap it around the front and around to the back. It will be then invisible, but it will help keep that magnet attached to the window. So I've got a whole pile of windows here. I'm going to do that to all of those. Now that we have the windows ready, we're ready to clean this house and maybe do just a little bit of paint touch up, and then it's going to be done. As a reminder, I always like to test my cleaners first in an inconspicuous area in case you have a bad reaction of some type. Also, I use a non-sudsy cleaner. This is either, you can use spray 9. This happens to be when that bottle was empty. I filled it up with Awesome Cleaner from the Dollar Tree, or 409 works, anything that's kind of a non-sudsy cleaner. I spray right on my rag, never on my house. Don't use too much pressure, don't use too much liquid, and just give it a nice clean all over top and bottom. I'll get under here and clean. I'm going to get the whole thing wiped off. This needs so little paint touch up. There's like 2 areas on the floor I want to show you that I'm going to work on. And one is clear down here on the bottom of the living room wall. Right there's a brown spot. And because that's really pretty rough to the touch, I'm going to sand it a little bit. And I'm going to tell you again how I sand. I use a fine grit sandpaper, just a little piece of one. So this little piece here, I like to use pretty fine grit. I think this is 180 grit. The bigger the number, the finer the grit. So 180 or 200 or 220, something like that. And then I'm going to make my finger like a little sanding block, wrap it around my finger, and then just circle, 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 circle. After I get that down smooth, smoother than it is. Right now it's pretty rough to the touch. Get it down smoother. Then I will wipe that rust dust off. So then I'll be ready to paint. Now you want to be careful and don't over sand, because when you sand you will remove the paint in the surrounding area. And then the other spot that I want to touch up is right here in the bedroom. There's a little dark spot right there. It's about the size of a pea. And I'm just going to put a little bit of like light blue or teal on that. Probably won't sand that. It's not quite as rough to the touch. I think I have this maneuvered around so you can see the spot that I'm talking about. I have already sanded that and wiped it off. And I'm using my palette for something else right now. So I just took this little can and mixed up a little bit of yellow and added a little bit of brown to it. And I've got white there on the standby to use also. And I think this is a pretty good match. I've taken a look at it. So I'm just going to kind of tap that paint on there and see if I can make that brown spot, disappear and look a little better. Now I just use acrylic paint. So if I don't like this, it can get wiped off and start over. Or if the person that buys it would rather have a brown spot there, they can wipe it off. So there we go. That's not bad for a first coat. It's almost always going to take 2 coats. The first one I cover up whatever's, brown or the metal showing or whatever. It might even take 2 or 3 coats to do that. And then my last coat, every time I'll try to get that color a little closer, a little closer. If it's a little light right now, it will dry a little darker, but I might put just a little touch of orange in there, or maybe a little more brown when I do my last coat. There you go. It was that area right there, and it looks much, much better.